My daughter looked me dead in the eye, her lips pressed tight the way she did when she was about to deliver bad news, and said, "Mom, you're done here. The bakery doesn't need you anymore. Mark and I will handle things from now on." For a moment I thought I misheard her. My own daughter, my Rebecca, was standing in the middle of the flour-dusted kitchen I built with my bare hands, telling me I was no longer welcome in the very place that carried my blood, sweat, and soul. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. But instead I just wiped my hands on my apron and stared at her. She didn't even flinch. So before I continue, please take a second to like and subscribe. It helps this channel grow, and I'd love to know in the comments, have you ever built something from scratch only to have someone try to take it from you? Now let me tell you what really happened that day. The morning had started like any other. I'd woken up before dawn in my little house on Maple Street, slipped on my shoes and walked the 2 blocks to Harris Family Bakery. That sign had been hanging above the door for over 30 years. I remember the day my late husband and I painted it, carefully stenciling each letter while Daniel, our boy, rode his bike in circles on the sidewalk, and Rebecca, only 8 at the time, sat on the steps eating a chocolate chip cookie straight from the oven. That bakery was my whole life. It paid for school clothes, for braces, for Rebecca's prom dress. It saw birthday cakes stacked 3 tiers high, pies that disappeared in a single town fair, and wedding orders that kept me up until 3 in the morning. Every morning I pushed open the glass door, listened to the cheerful chime of the little brass bell, and felt the weight of the world ease just a little. But that morning felt different. The air was too still, too heavy. Rebecca was already there. That was unusual. She was never the one to come in early, never the one to tie her hair back and roll up her sleeves. She preferred the glossy front, handling customers when she felt like it, taking credit for the work she rarely did. "Morning," I said softly, tying on my apron. "You're here early." She didn't answer. Just crossed her arms, leaning against the stainless steel counter like a stranger in my kitchen. Her husband, Mark, slipped in behind her. He carried a clipboard, his face smug like a man with a secret. That's when she said it. "Mom, you're done here." My heart stumbled in my chest. "What do you mean, done?" My voice cracked, and I hated the sound of it. Weak, uncertain. "Rebecca, this is my bakery. I built it with your father. This is our family's." "Not anymore." She cut me off, her tone cold, rehearsed. "Mark and I have been running the numbers. You're too old to keep up. The bills, the taxes, the suppliers. It's too much for you. You've done enough. Now it's our turn." Mark flipped a page on his clipboard and smirked. "We've decided it's best for you to step aside." Step aside. Like I was some cashier at a grocery store, not the woman who had risen at 4 a.m. every morning for 30 years to knead bread until her hands blistered. I gripped the edge of the counter, steadying myself. "And what happens to me? Where do you expect me to go?" Rebecca shrugged. "Home. Rest. You've worked enough. It's time you let us handle things." Her eyes darted to Mark, and in that glance I saw it. A shadow. Something she wasn't saying. I wanted to argue, to throw the rolling pin across the room. But my voice wouldn't rise. All I managed was a whisper. "This bakery is my life." Rebecca sighed dramatically, as if she were tired of carrying the weight of me. "It was your life. Now it's ours." Mark scribbled something on his clipboard. His pen scratched like a knife. I noticed then the office door was locked. My office. The one with the ledgers, the deeds, the contracts. I'd always left it open. Always trusted my family. But now the key was missing from the hook by the fridge. A chill ran through me. They'd been planning this. That day blurred after their words. I went through the motions, measuring flour, sliding trays into the oven, dusting powdered sugar on croissants. My hands worked, but my mind was stuck on their faces, on Rebecca's coldness, on Mark's smirk. Every laugh, every whisper between them suddenly made sense. The late-night phone calls. The sudden interest in the books. The way they discouraged me from coming in on Sundays, saying, "You need your rest, Mom." It wasn't care. It was strategy. And it hit me like a punch in the gut. My own daughter was betraying me. That night after we closed, I stayed late cleaning. The ovens were silent, the lights dimmed. I walked through the bakery like I was walking through a dream. The wooden counter still carried the dents from when Daniel once dropped a mixer. The window still bore the faint crack from when Rebecca slammed it too hard during a teenage tantrum. I touched each mark, each scar, like I was saying goodbye. When I finally locked up, Rebecca's words echoed in my ears. You're done here. The bakery doesn't need you anymore. But as I stepped into the cool night air, I felt something stir in me. A spark. They thought I was finished. They thought they could erase me from my own story. But they didn't know everything. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up with flour still under my fingernails and the bitter taste of betrayal on my tongue. Sleep had done nothing to quiet Rebecca's words. You're done here. The bakery doesn't need you anymore. But I went back anyway. I always did. When I pushed open the door, the bell gave its familiar chime, but the air inside was different. Still. Heavy. Rebecca and Mark were already at the counter, their heads bent over a pile of papers. They looked up in unison when I entered, like two children caught sneaking cookies. Only these weren't children, and they weren't caught with cookies. They were caught with contracts. Morning, I said, forcing a calmness I didn't feel. Rebecca's eyes flickered with something sharp before she plastered on a smile. Oh. You're early. Early. I was never early. I was always first. Mark shuffled the papers quickly, tucking them into a manila folder. We're just, going over numbers, he muttered. Numbers. Always numbers. The ovens hummed as I started the morning prep, but my eyes kept straying to that folder. Every time Rebecca caught me glancing, her hand slid protectively over it. Finally, I couldn't stand it. What's in there? I asked, keeping my tone even. Mark stiffened. Rebecca's lips curved into a too sweet smile. Business stuff, Mom. Nothing you need to worry about. Nothing I need to worry about. The words stung like vinegar on a wound. I set down the dough I'd been kneading and turned to face them fully. This is my bakery. I have every right to know what's going on. Rebecca exhaled sharply like I was a nuisance. Fine. Since you're so curious, Mark and I have been in talks with some developers. They're offering to buy the building and the brand. For a lot of money. My stomach dropped. Buy. Sell. My voice cracked. This bakery isn't just a brand. It's our family's history. Rebecca's expression hardened. It's also a sinking ship. You don't see the bigger picture, Mom. This deal could change our lives. Mark added, we're talking 7 figures. Enough to pay off debts, move into a new house, set ourselves up for life. I stared at them, speechless. 7 figures. For them it was a jackpot. For me it was a gravestone on my life's work. You can't do this, I whispered. Rebecca tilted her head, mocking almost. Actually, we can. You signed over partial management rights years ago when we expanded. Remember? You said it was to give us responsibility. Her words stabbed deep because they were true. Back then I thought I was giving her a gift. A chance to carry the family name forward. I never imagined she'd use it to shove me out. You don't understand, I said, voice trembling. This bakery is more than money. It's... Rebecca slammed her hand on the counter, cutting me off. It's ours now, Mom. You've had your time. You're old. It's time you step aside before you ruin this for us. Old. Like I was a cracked teacup ready for the trash. I looked at Mark, hoping for some shred of compassion, but his smirk told me all I needed to know. He was the one whispering in her ear, feeding her greed. What about the staff? I asked. What about the town? People depend on this place. Rebecca rolled her eyes. People will get over it. There are other bakeries. I felt something inside me splinter. My daughter, the little girl who once begged me to teach her how to frost cupcakes, now dismissed 30 years of sweat and sacrifice like it was nothing. And then came the final blow. Mark pulled out a pen and slid the folder closer. All we need is your signature to finalize. Developers are eager. They want to turn this block into condos. Condos. Over my husband's memory. Over every wedding cake, every birthday candle, every loaf of bread that ever left our ovens. I pushed the folder back, my hands shaking. I'll never sign. Rebecca's eyes went cold. Then we'll move forward without you. Either way, this place is ours now. I don't remember leaving that day. I just remember walking through town in a fog, hearing the chatter of neighbors and the squeal of children, all while Rebecca's words rang in my head. We'll move forward without you. By the time I reached home, the sun was setting. My hands were raw from clenching my fists, my throat sore from swallowing tears I refused to let fall. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the faded wallpaper and whispered to myself, they think they've won. But then, slowly, a bitter smile curled across my face. Because what they didn't know was that months ago, long before Rebecca and Mark thought they were clever, I had already made a move of my own. And soon they'd realize the bakery wasn't theirs to sell. When you've lived through enough storms, you learn to read the clouds. Months before Rebecca and Mark ever dared to say I was done here, I had already felt a chill in the air. It was in the way they whispered at the register, how they closed the office door when they thought I wasn't listening. It was in the questions Rebecca asked at Sunday dinner. About the property deed, the bakery's accounts, my retirement plans. At first I told myself it was normal. A daughter taking an interest. A son-in-law trying to be helpful. But deep down something in my bones stirred uneasily. I'd been betrayed before. Not in business but in love. My late husband's family tried to push me out after he died, saying I couldn't manage on my own. They underestimated me then, and I could smell the same poison brewing again. So I called someone I trusted. Her name was Janet Turner, a lawyer I'd met years back when she ordered custom pies for the county fundraiser. She wasn't just sharp with contracts. She had a heart for small businesses, for women like me who had clawed their way up from nothing. The memory of that day still makes me smile. I sat across from her polished oak desk, my apron still dusted with flour. "Janet," I said, my voice steady but low, "I need to protect what's mine." Quietly. She tilted her head, studying me. "You think someone's coming after the bakery?" I nodded. "I don't just think it. I feel it." She leaned forward, folding her hands. "Then we'll make sure when they strike they hit nothing but air." Within weeks, papers were signed. Not flashy, not obvious, but effective. I transferred ownership of the bakery building into a limited liability company, Harris Trust LC, where the managing partner wasn't me but Janet. On paper, she became the face of the property. I still ran the business, still held authority over operations, but the walls, the deed, the foundation, it no longer sat in my name. Rebecca and Mark thought I was a naive old woman who never checked a balance sheet. What they didn't know was that every move they made was happening on land that legally belonged to someone else. And I didn't stop there. I sat down with Henry Miller, the town banker, a man who had eaten my blueberry muffins for decades. "Henry," I said, sliding a folder across his desk, "if anyone comes asking about loans or collateral against the bakery, you call me first. No exceptions." He adjusted his glasses, peered at me, and gave a slow nod. "Understood. You've been good to this town, Mabel. I won't let anyone blindside you." Then came Sarah Lopez, my head baker. Young, loyal, and sharp. I pulled her aside one night while the ovens cooled. "Sarah," I said, handing her a key. "This is for the second safe in the office. Don't tell Rebecca or Mark. If anything happens, you open it. Inside are documents that explain everything." Her eyes widened. "Mabel, what's going on?" I put a hand on her shoulder. "Just trust me. One day soon you'll understand." The more Rebecca and Mark whispered, the more I prepared. I changed passwords, rerouted supply invoices through my private email, and quietly updated insurance policies. I wasn't paranoid, I was seasoned. By the time Rebecca finally told me I was done, I already had a net under me. That's why, when I sat in my quiet kitchen that night replaying her cruel words, I wasn't broken. Hurt, yes. Betrayed, absolutely. But powerless? Never. Because the bakery wasn't truly theirs to sell. The next morning I met Janet again. Her office smelled faintly of lemon polish and coffee, a sharp contrast to the yeast and sugar that clung to me. "They confronted me," I told her, settling into the leather chair. "Said they're selling to developers. They think I'll just hand it over." Janet's eyes narrowed. "Developers? Do you know who?" I shook my head. "They wouldn't say. Just waved numbers in my face like I was supposed to bow down." She tapped her pen against her legal pad. "All right. Here's what we'll do. We'll sit tight. If they present any contract, we'll let them sign themselves into a corner. Once they try to sell, the developers will find out fast they've been dealing with people who don't actually own the property." A slow smile spread across her face. "That'll blow up in their faces quick." Her confidence steadied me, but I still ached. That night, as I lay awake in Linda's guest room, my closest friend who insisted I stay after I confessed everything, I stared at the ceiling and thought about Rebecca. I remembered her at 12, standing on a stool in the bakery kitchen, proudly pulling out her first tray of muffins. She'd grinned at me, chocolate smeared on her cheek, and said, "One day this will all be mine." Back then it filled me with pride. Now those words felt like a knife twisted in my chest. Over the next week I kept up appearances. I still showed up at the bakery, still tied my apron, still smiled at customers. But I watched closely. Rebecca spent more time in the office than on the floor. Mark met strangers in suits at the corner table, always lowering his voice when I walked by. And then one night after closing I heard it. Rebecca on the phone, her voice low but sharp. Yes, the papers will be ready soon. Don't worry, she won't be a problem. My mother's old, she'll step aside. Old. Always old. I clenched the mop handle in my hands until my knuckles turned white. They didn't see me in the shadows. But I saw them clearly. I called Janet again the next morning. They're close, I said. I heard her. They think I'll step aside quietly. Janet chuckled, not unkindly. Then let them think that. The bigger the lie they build, the harder it'll fall when the truth hits. Her calmness soothed me, but my heart still twisted with every passing day. Because this wasn't just about a building. It was about a daughter turning her back on her mother. About trust splintered into shards too sharp to ever fit back together. One evening, Sarah, my young baker, lingered after closing. Mabel, she said softly, wiping her hands on her apron, is it true? Are you leaving? I froze. Who told you that? Rebecca did. She said you're retiring, that she and Mark are the future of the bakery. I swallowed hard. Is that what you believe? Her brown eyes met mine, steady. No. You're the heart of this place. Without you it's just flour and bricks. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them away. Thank you, Sarah. That means more than you know. She hesitated, then whispered, whatever happens, I'm with you. And so the stage was set. Rebecca and Mark thought they held all the cards. They thought money, youth, and ambition were enough to erase me. But I had something stronger. Foresight, allies, and the quiet steel you only forge after a lifetime of storms. The betrayal had been revealed. The trap was set. And soon the whole town would see who truly owned Harris Family Bakery. The first sign came on a Wednesday morning. I was arranging cinnamon rolls in the display case when Rebecca burst through the bakery doors, her heels clicking like gunshots against the tiled floor. Mark followed close behind, carrying a folder so thick it looked ready to split. Customers glanced up, startled. Rebecca ignored them, marching straight to the counter where I stood. Attention, everyone, she announced, her voice sharp enough to cut through the hum of chatter and clinking coffee cups. I have wonderful news to share. My stomach sank. I already knew this was no good. Mark puffed his chest out, grinning like a man who'd just hit the lottery. As of today, Rebecca and I are the official owners of Harris Family Bakery. Gasps rippled through the room. Mrs. Jensen nearly dropped her scone. Old Mr. Thompson squinted from his corner booth and muttered, "What in blazes is she talking about?" I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself, but I didn't say a word. Not yet. Rebecca raised her chin, basking in the attention. That's right. After years of running things behind the scenes, Mark and I are finally stepping forward. My mother has decided to retire. It's time for a new era. Her eyes flicked to me then, daring me to contradict her. I stayed silent, my heart pounding. Mark opened the folder with a flourish, pulling out glossy flyers. He handed them out like candy, placing one on every table. Across the top in bold letters were the words, "Coming soon. Luxury condos on Maple Street. Presented by Harris Development." My hands shook as I picked up one of the flyers. There, right in the center, was a sketch of our block. The bakery erased, replaced by a sleek gray building with mirrored windows. Felt like looking at a gravestone. Condos. Mrs. Jensen's voice cracked. But what about our bakery? Rebecca pasted on a smile. We'll still run a cafe on the ground floor. Something modern. Trendy. Maple Street needs an upgrade. The room erupted. Neighbors I'd known for decades fired questions. You're tearing down the bakery? What about the workers? You can't just erase history like that. Rebecca waved her hands, trying to calm them. Relax. This is progress. You'll thank us later. Mark chimed in. The developers are offering top dollar. This will raise property values for everyone. But the crowd wasn't buying it. The bakery wasn't just a business. It was the heart of the town. Birthdays, weddings, funerals. Every event carried something from my ovens. People weren't ready to trade that for granite countertops and rooftop pools. I finally spoke, my voice quiet but steady. This bakery isn't yours to sell. Every head turned. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. Mom, don't start. I lifted the flyer and shook it slightly. You may have signed papers, but you don't own this building. You can't sell what isn't yours. Mark snorted. Don't be ridiculous. We've got it all lined up. Developers, lawyers. Everything is set. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. We'll see. The days that followed were chaos. Rebecca and Mark plastered the town with their glossy flyers. They hosted a future vision meeting at City Hall, showing renderings of their condo project. They spoke like heroes bringing prosperity to Maple Street. But whispers spread just as fast. At the grocery store, I overheard two women whispering, "Can you believe Rebecca would do that to her own mother?" At church, Mrs. Jensen clasped my hand and whispered, "Don't you worry, dear. We're with you." Still, Rebecca strutted through town as though she'd already won. Then came the investors' dinner. Mark rented out the banquet hall at the Holiday Inn off Route 6. Developers in suits poured in, shaking hands and sipping wine. Rebecca wore a sleek red dress, smiling like a queen. I wasn't invited. Of course not. But Sarah, my loyal baker, was there, hired to cater. And she told me everything. She said Rebecca stood at the microphone, boasting, "In 6 months, Harris Family Bakery will be transformed into Maple residences. Contracts are already in motion. My mother has gracefully stepped aside, and now Mark and I are taking this legacy into the future." Polite applause followed, but Sarah told me she caught the side glances, the investors whispering. Something was off. And then the first crack appeared. One of the developers, Mr. Patel, a sharp man from the city, raised his hand and asked, "Can you confirm you hold full title to the property?" Rebecca faltered just for a second. Then she smiled. "Of course. My mother passed it on to me." But Mr. Patel wasn't convinced. "Good. Because our legal team always verifies deeds before signing final contracts." That night, Sarah texted me under the table, "They're checking the deed. It's happening." By Friday, the whispers had grown louder. At the diner, someone said they saw the developers storm out of a meeting with Mark, papers in hand, faces like thunderclouds. At the post office, the clerk muttered, "Heard the deal's falling apart already." And then it happened. I was in the bakery kitchen pulling a tray of loaves from the oven when Rebecca stormed in. Her face was red, her eyes wild. She slammed the door so hard the glass rattled. "You knew," she spat. "You set this up, didn't you?" I set the tray down calmly, though my heart was racing. "Set what up?" "The deed," she screamed. "The developer said the property isn't in your name, or mine. It's in some stupid LLC. Janet Turner? Really, Mom?" I met her glare with steady eyes. "I told you. You can't sell what isn't yours." Her voice cracked with rage. "You betrayed me." I laughed bitterly. "No, Rebecca. You betrayed me. You tried to erase me from my own life. All I did was protect what was mine." She crumpled then, her anger twisting into something uglier. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "Mark and I, will find another way. We're not giving up." I shook my head. "Maybe you should. Because every lie you've told is starting to unravel. And the whole town is watching." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I leaned against the counter, my knees weak, my chest heavy. My own daughter had called me the betrayer. But I wasn't the one who tried to sell her soul for condos. That weekend, the fallout spread like wildfire. The developers pulled out officially, citing unclear ownership status. Investors withdrew. Mark raged in the street outside the bakery, yelling into his phone, his voice echoing through Maple Street. Neighbors stared. Customers whispered. And for the first time I saw shame flicker across Rebecca's face. The town had chosen its side. They chose me. But deep inside I knew this wasn't the end. Because people like Mark don't crawl away quietly. And Rebecca, my daughter, wasn't ready to give up her claim. The war for Harris Family Bakery had only just begun. The Monday after the developers pulled out, the bakery felt heavier than ever. The ovens hummed as usual, the bell above the door chimed when customers entered, but the air carried something sour. Rebecca hadn't shown up that morning. Mark had, though, and he stalked around the bakery like a storm cloud, snapping at Sarah for burning a tray of muffins, muttering curses under his breath. I kept my head down, rolling out dough, but I could feel his eyes on me. Finally he snapped. "You think you're clever, don't you?" I looked up slowly, meeting his glare. "I think I protected what was mine." His face twisted. You embarrassed us in front of the entire town. Do you know how much money we lost? Money isn't everything, I said softly. He slammed his fist against the counter, making the flour jar jump. It is when you've promised people a deal. We had investors lined up. Rebecca and I were finally going to get out of this dump. This dump, I cut in sharply, raised your wife. Fed this town. Paid for every roof you've ever lived under. Show some respect. He sneered. Respect? You think anyone respects you anymore? You're old news, Mabel. Just an old woman clinging to the past. My chest ached, but I refused to let him see me break. Better an old woman with dignity than a young man with nothing but greed. For a moment his face burned red and I thought he might hit me. But instead he spun on his heel and stormed out, the bell clanging violently as the door slammed shut. That night Rebecca came. I was sitting alone in the bakery kitchen finishing the books, when the back door creaked open. She stepped inside, shoulders slumped, eyes shadowed. For a second I saw my little girl again, the one who used to sneak cookie dough from the bowl when she thought I wasn't looking. But then she spoke. Mom, you have to fix this. I set down my pen. Fix what? She threw her hands up. Everything. The developers won't return our calls. The bank says we're overextended. Mark is furious. And everyone in town is whispering about us. I studied her carefully. And whose fault is that? Her lip trembled. Yours. You humiliated us. You took everything away. My heart cracked at the word us. Not me. Not her. Always us, as if Mark's voice had swallowed hers whole. I rose slowly, wiping my hands on my apron. Rebecca, listen to yourself. I didn't take anything. I protected the bakery because it was never yours to sell. Her eyes filled with tears, but they didn't soften her expression. You don't understand. Mark and I, we needed this. We had plans. We were finally going to build a real life. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You already had a real life. You had family. You had history. You had this bakery. And you threw it all away. She shook her head violently. You don't get it. I can't spend the rest of my life trapped here, baking bread and smiling at neighbors who don't care. I want more. Mark wants more. And you, her voice cracked, you're standing in our way. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. So you'd rather erase me than disappoint him? She froze, tears glistening in her eyes. That silence told me everything. You didn't just try to sell a bakery, Rebecca, I whispered, my voice trembling. You tried to sell me. Your mother. Her tears spilled then, streaking her cheeks. I didn't mean. But I held up a hand. No. You meant every word. You told this town I retired, that I stepped aside. You let them believe I was gone. And when I refused to give you what you wanted, you called me the betrayer. She flinched, but I pressed on, my voice sharper now. Do you know what hurts the most? Not losing money. Not losing contracts. It's losing you. My daughter. The little girl I raised to be better than this. Her shoulders shook, but she didn't reach for me. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, almost a whisper. If you don't fix this, Mark will leave me. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I wanted to gather her in my arms, tell her it would all be okay. But then I remembered every smirk, every lie, every flyer with my bakery erased from the block. I opened my eyes again. Then maybe you need to ask yourself if a man who makes you choose between him and your family is worth keeping. Her breath hitched, but she didn't answer. She just turned, pulling her coat tighter, and left without another word. The bell above the door gave a soft, lonely chime as it closed behind her. The next week was a storm. Rumors flew through town. Some said Rebecca and Mark had drained their savings into the failed condo deal. Others whispered about angry investors demanding money back. Mark stopped showing his face altogether. Rebecca came in only once or twice, her eyes hollow, her smile forced. Customers noticed. They asked where she was. They asked if I was taking the bakery back. I never gave them a straight answer. I just kept baking. But inside I was unraveling. Because no matter how angry I was, no matter how betrayed I felt, I couldn't erase the image of Rebecca's trembling voice. If you don't fix this, Mark will leave me. One night the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick it up. It was Rebecca. Her voice was ragged, desperate. Mom, please. Mark is gone. He walked out tonight. Said I ruined everything. I don't know what to do. My hand tightened on the receiver. My chest ached. Rebecca, I whispered. She sobbed on the other end. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have. Her voice broke completely. Please, can I come home? For a long moment I couldn't speak. 1,000 memories rushed through me. Holding her hand on her first day of school, braiding her hair before prom, standing by her side the day she said, I do. And then the day she told me I was done. I drew in a shaky breath. Rebecca, I'll always love you. But I can't fix what you chose to break. Her sobs grew louder. Please. Tears burned my eyes, but I stayed firm. You need to learn that actions have consequences. My door is open if you want to be my daughter again, not my enemy. But I won't clean up Mark's mess. Not this time. There was silence on the other end. A silence so heavy it felt like a stone pressing against my chest. Then the line went dead. I sat there in the dark kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. I had drawn the line. And for the first time in months I felt something shift inside me. Not peace. Not yet. But strength. Because betrayal had taken so much from me. But it wouldn't take me. 2 weeks after that phone call, the bakery was busier than ever. The town had rallied in ways I never expected. Customers came not just for bread and pies but to show support. They brought flowers, cards, even offers of free help. We're with you, Mabel, Mrs. Jensen told me, her wrinkled hand squeezing mine as she bought a dozen muffins. We won't let them take this place from you. Every time the bell chimed and another neighbor walked through the door, my chest swelled with something I hadn't felt in months: belonging. Rebecca and Mark were nowhere to be seen. Word was Mark had left town entirely. Packed his bags, sold his car, disappeared. Some said he'd run from debts. Others said he'd found work 2 states over. All I knew was that his smug voice no longer poisoned my bakery. Rebecca, she stayed but barely. I'd catch glimpses of her around Maple Street. Head down, shoulders slumped, avoiding eye contact. She didn't come into the bakery again. Not once. And though my heart ached to see her like that, I also knew some wounds weren't mine to heal. The paperwork Janet filed months earlier held firm. Harris Family Bakery was safe, legally and financially. The developers officially withdrew, filing a statement with City Hall that confirmed they had been misled by unauthorized parties. That phrase, unauthorized parties, spread through town like wildfire. People whispered it at the diner, the post office, even church. It clung to Rebecca and Mark like a stain they couldn't scrub off. And for the first time in a long while I could breathe. One evening after closing, I sat at the counter with Sarah and a fresh pot of coffee. She looked around the quiet bakery and smiled faintly. Feels like the heart's beating again, doesn't it? I nodded, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. It does. But it's a different beat now. Quieter. Steadier. She tilted her head. Do you think Rebecca will ever come back? The question cut deep. I stared into my coffee, the steam blurring my vision. I don't know, I admitted. I'll always want her to. But I can't wait for her anymore. This bakery needs me present, not lost in what-ifs. Sarah reached across the counter, squeezing my hand. Then you're not alone. I've got you. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them away. She wasn't my daughter, but in that moment she felt like family. 6 months later, the seasons had turned. Autumn leaves scattered across Maple Street, crunching under the feet of customers who lined up early for pumpkin bread and pecan pies. The bakery smelled of cinnamon and nutmeg, a perfume of resilience and survival. The sign above the door, Harris Family Bakery, was polished, its gold lettering catching the morning sun. For a while I'd thought about changing it, removing the word family after all that had happened. But no. Family wasn't just blood. It was everyone who stood with me when betrayal tried to bury me. So the name stayed. Rebecca sent a letter once. Just once. It arrived folded neatly in an envelope with no return address. Inside, her handwriting trembled across the page. Mom, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I see now what I lost. Not just the bakery. I let greed blind me, and I hurt the one person who never stopped loving me. I'm sorry. Maybe one day I'll be strong enough to face you in person. Until then, please know I love you. I read it 3 times before setting it aside. My heart ached, but it also softened. I didn't reply. Not yet. Sometimes silence is the only answer that carries weight. Life settled into a rhythm again. Early mornings, warm ovens, friendly faces. Sarah took on more responsibility, learning the old recipes, adding a few of her own. Customers loved her apple cranberry turnovers so much we added them to the permanent menu. I worked less than I used to. Not because I couldn't, but because I finally allowed myself rest. Some mornings I sat by the window with a cup of coffee and just watched Maple Street wake up. The town was changing, yes, but the bakery still stood. And so did I. One quiet Sunday afternoon I closed the shop early and walked down to the river. The water sparkled in the fading light, rippling gently as leaves drifted past. I sat on a bench, my coat wrapped tight, and whispered to the breeze, I survived. As I had. Betrayal didn't break me. It tried. Oh, it tried, but instead it showed me who I really was. Stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. I thought about Rebecca. About Mark. About the condo flyers that once promised to erase my bakery. And then I thought about Sarah, about Mrs. Jensen, about the dozens of neighbors who kept showing up with kind words and open wallets. Family betrayal had nearly destroyed me. But community had stitched me back together. As the sun dipped lower, I let myself imagine a future. Not the one I once dreamed of, Rebecca at the helm carrying on the legacy, but a quieter, steadier one. Maybe one day Rebecca would walk through the bakery doors again, head bowed, voice trembling, and maybe I'd open my arms. Maybe I wouldn't. But either way I'd keep going. Because Harris Family Bakery wasn't just flour and bricks. It was resilience baked into every loaf, survival folded into every pie, strength dusted across every cookie. And as long as I was alive, no one, not even my own blood, could take that away from me. That night, as I locked up and turned off the lights, I glanced at the sign one more time. The gold letters gleamed faintly under the street lamp. I smiled. Not the cold, bitter smile I'd worn the night Rebecca first betrayed me, but a real one. Warm, quiet, because for the first time in years, my life was mine again. And that was enough. That was my story. Tell me in the comments, if your own child betrayed you like this, would you forgive them? Or would you walk away for good? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories of betrayal and survival.